Okay, let's talk about the Bucks for a bit. The team that I had all of last season as my finals pick. And then, of course, we know what happened in round one. And, of course, Giannis missed 2 games and he only played a little bit of another game. And Jimmy had an out-of-body experience. Middleton has now got more time removed from his injury, and he was looking better at the tail end of the season in the playoffs and stuff. The Bucks' half-court offense was rough throughout parts of that Heat series. We all know how good Miami's defense was. I mean, we all saw the insane run Miami went on. I do think this team is suddenly under, like, a decent amount of pressure, I would say. For one, a little bit of it because of the Giannis quote that dropped yesterday now, talking about his extension, and he wants the organization to show that they're committed to winning a title and all that stuff. He's been saying stuff like that for a minute. That's not the huge thing, but it's that combined with just the age of the roster around him, which is not super old, but I also think it's safe to say that they don't have millions of opportunities left, right? Of course, the obvious counter to all this is just, well, they already won a championship, therefore you can't have any pressure on you. And hey, you know what? Maybe you're right. I mean, when I did my one question for every Eastern Conference team, my whole thing was just about Adrian Griffin and mostly how can he juice up the half-court offense, and that's always the big thing with these guys. And like I always say, my 2 favorite plays for this team are Giannis screening for Middleton and then Brook screening for Giannis. And then the question after that is, like, what other sets can Adrian Griffin bring to the team to where they don't fall into, especially in clutch situations, especially in the playoffs, even as they won the title, they still had to fight through this, where it was like, man, there's just moments where, I don't want to say there's not a plan, but there might just be a little too much freelancing, you know? So, okay, we'll see. Whether that's like movement from Drew, Middleton, help, potentially even Giannis, you know, just creative off-ball sets, whatever you want to think of, right? But when you do talk about Drew and Middleton, I mean, look, this franchise is dependent on these two holding up, and Drew, he's just inconsistent in the playoffs, man, between his shot selection and, well, I mean, it does feel like the shot selection is the big thing. Yes, defensively, he's still awesome. He's still a very good passer, and he's making the right plays. He's doing a lot of good basketball things. You also can't ignore his efficiency, which does dip down in the playoffs. Now, in the same breath, I got to say, regular season-wise, Drew is still fantastic. And overall, he's still really good. I don't want to imply otherwise. Now, if you want to give him a little bit of leeway for last year, or when the year when Middleton was out because they needed somebody else to take some tougher shots, okay, you can do that if you want. And in the case of Middleton, I mean, we all get it. He's been working back from the injury, and he's been trending upwards, I would say. And it wouldn't shock me if he got pretty much all the way back to the best version of him, which, you know, granted, that was a few years ago now, but I mean, the tough shot making, the separation he can create, the 2-man game with Giannis, of course. I do also like how, as the years and as this run has gone on, they've been a little more willing to get Brook involved in the post when he's got opportunities. Granted, you can't ask him to do it every single game, given how huge he is for you on the other end as well, but okay, cool. And I guess just to touch on that defense, I expect them to once again be an elite defensive team. I don't know if Adrian Griffin's going to try different defensive sets where it's not just going to be the drop coverage foundation, like maybe it's something else, but I mean, this defense, we've seen what it looks like with the drop. Like, it's fantastic. And yes, okay, sometimes you need some adjustments in the playoffs, great, but the foundation is so good, I don't think you need to make drastic changes like that, you know? Now let's get to the idea of, you know, could they make changes, trades, whatever, as the season goes along? Well, it's not super easy to find trades for them just because they don't have a whole lot of ammo. I mean, they still have some picks that are locked up from the Drew trade, and they don't have just your obvious tradable salary. I mean, if you want to do like a Pat Connaughton, Grayson Allen, combine their salaries thing, okay, but both of those guys matter for this team as catch and shoot guys, right? And I also can't see a world in which they would trade Bobby Portis. Like, Bobby Portis is just very good for them. But with all that said, you know, in my opinion, I think the ideal type of player to add to this team would be a guard or a wing who can do a bit of everything on offense, not just be a catch and shoot guy, but also attack off the catch, perhaps even run some pick and roll themselves. What would be huge is if Marjon Beauchamp could hit for him like that. And with Beauchamp, I mean, coming into the NBA, the scouting on him was pretty much, he's an athlete, he's a defender, and he's shown signs on offense, but we'll see if the 3-ball can really get there and stuff. So, okay, we're going into year 2 with him. But again, they don't have a whole lot of trade ammo unless they were going to consider moving some of their farther out picks, but that's kind of scary to think about in my opinion. Now, for what it's worth, they did add Malik Beasley in the offseason, and if he hits, then okay, that gives them something a little different, you know, not just a catch and shoot guy, but somebody who can make tough shots on the move. So we'll see. I mean, Malik Beasley, he can still make shots, no doubt. I mean, the peak of him was like a 50-game stretch he had with the Wolves where he basically shot over 40% from 3 on like 8.5 threes a game. But his numbers have not been at that for a little bit now, and I mean, he's going to have to make shots at a high clip. That's what he does. As far as trade rumors for them, there doesn't seem to be much of anything. I mean, there was something like last offseason that I dug up saying that there was a potential Jordan Clarkson trade for them, but I mean, clearly it didn't happen, and it didn't seem like it really went anywhere either. I guess to close this thing out, like, is there anything that Giannis needs to get better at? I mean, okay, if the free throw percentage was a little better, that would be cool. If he had one textbook go-to post move, that would also be nice, but really with Giannis, you just have to nitpick when you're talking about how he can get better because the dude's amazing. So yeah, look, I do think their title window is still open. I know what happened in that round one, but like it's still a talented veteran group that's already won it once, and they got one of the best players in the league. Like the last thing I'm going to do is count these guys out, and I'm still terrified of them as a Celtics fan.